Welcome to the Global Business Women's Pod, brought to you by the Greater Houston Women's Chamber of Commerce. I am Susan Dyson and proud to be the CEO, President, and founder of the Chamber. Please join us for this empowering podcast every Thursday at 6 p.m.
So now we're going to move on to the next topic. Why don't we do this before we go on? Just do not leave the room, people, okay? Stand up, do a little stretch, do a little boogie, whatever you want to do. We need a little stretch. We've been sitting a while, right? Take a deep breath. All right. I'm going to call to the stage now Maria Martinez, who is the Vice President of HR and Administration at Murphy Oil, and also our current chairwoman of the Greater Houston Women's Chamber of Commerce. Woo!
Thank you, Julie.
Awesome. And Maria is going to lead a panel today to talk about embracing our value and becoming a fierce, I love that word, fierce advocate, not only for yourself, but fellow women in tech. Take it away.
Awesome. Everybody can hear me? Great. So I have the honor to moderate this panel with 4 great panelists. I will highlight their name, title, and where they work, and that way we have time for all the questions. So I'll start with Anita Nair. She is the Managing Director within the Technology Consulting Practice of Ernst & Young. She has worked with upstream, downstream, utilities, and construction clients to implement solutions to foster profitable and sustainable growth. Anita, if you can come up here. Join me in welcoming Anita. We also have Heather Hughes, which is the Vice President of Stroz Friedberg's Houston office, where she leads a wide variety of engagements, including data breach, incident response matters, complex digital forensics investigations, security risk assessments, and cyber due diligence investigations. Thank you, Heather, for being here this morning. Okay. I also have the honor of introducing Leisa Holland Nelson. She is a native Houstonian, an entrepreneur, a speaker, broadcaster, and mentor to women in business. She is the Vice President and CMO of Astoundz, and I love your LinkedIn where you say astounding. And she's also a co-host and co-founder of a new and highly successful Culture Club HTX media platform with our next panelist, Shavonnah Schneider. Come on up. Shavonnah is the CEO of CNR Creative, and she brings 2 decades of B2B experience in technology, energy, aviation, and professional services. She has a proven track record of assessing business opportunities and developing effective go-to-market sales strategies and marketing campaigns. Let's welcome this panel. So we want to get started with a question that they each will answer so that we get to know them a little bit better. And our intro question for each of you is, what people were the most influential in your career and why? So Anita, do you want to start first?
Sure. How do I?
There you go.
Can y'all hear me? Is it on? Okay. Louder? Okay. All right. So I think that's such a great question. There's so many people. I think about, my mom, my grandmother, my husband, who supported me over the past 20 years. Strong women leaders that I've worked with that have really set a good example of, driving change in the workplace, but also balancing a personal life as well. But one person that I would highlight today as someone who's been very instrumental in my career over the last few years is actually my daughter, Neha, who's actually here in the room, in the back.
Where is she?
Where's your right hand? Don't be shy. Oh, all the way in the back. All right. Cool.
She doesn't know that I was going to say this, but
close to your, mouth.
Is this better?
Much better.
Okay.
There you go. I'm
So
sorry.
my daughter Neha, she's a teenager. She's going to be going off to college in about a year. So as a Gen Z, I feel like things have really shifted over the past few years. And there's this focus that I feel the younger generation brings in about finding your purpose, what really resonates with you, what makes you the most happiest, right? So, as I am in the workplace, and as you mentioned, I do consulting work, and I work with a number of energy clients here in the region. it's really helped me to focus on, where do I think I can make the most impact, and where does the work most resonate with me? Who are the clients I want to work with? What is the kind of work I want to do? And bring that focus to my day-to-day, along with, working to balance my schedule and my activities, both at work and at home. So, so I really wanted to give kudos to my daughter for that.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. And Heather?
So I grew up, everyone hear me? Good. I grew up in a very blue collar steel mill town in Pennsylvania where nobody went to college at all. So I'm the first one in my family to go to college. And I thank a teacher, of course, who said your only ticket out of this hellhole is to go to college. And so I knew I had to get a scholarship because there was no money to do that. And then after college, I was a social worker for a while. And I think women, we have been trained to not be motivated by money. I am absolutely motivated by money, and realized that social work was just not going to cut it unless I won the lottery. So I had a female boss early on who said, it's okay to say you want to go make a bunch of money, right? So I went to law school. So I think, and I tell younger women who work for me now, like, if you're motivated by money, tell me that. If you're motivated because you love coding, tell me that. But it's okay as a woman to say, I want to make a lot of money, and what's my path to do that? And I think that there's some taboo to that. But, especially if you come from nothing, it resonated. Like, I wanted to be able to buy stuff. That was important. So
That's good. Thank you. Lisa.
Thank you. First and foremost, I think I have to say my father. My father told me, and this is crazy, I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm definitely the generation that went to college to get an MRS. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a husband.
Love it.
And I got one. Huh? Success, yes. In fact, never mind. Anyway, so Daddy, this is crazy. Daddy told me I could do anything. I could be anything. And all I wanted to do was do and be with him. And he loved sports, business, and he was an incredible gin player. He played gin every weekend with his friends. So I love sports, I love business, and don't play gin with me. But then I had three others, and I have to share this because they were each extraordinary. My first mentor in business was Stanley Marcus, and I became a buyer at Neiman's. And my first day, he knocked on my door. I had the only office with a door, believe it or not. I was buying accessories, and it was his favorite department. So he knocked on the door with this long box, and he says, "Young lady, do you know who I am?" I said, "Mr. Stanley, I know who you are." And he came in with this long box that I thought, my God, did he bring me a bracelet? What is this? And he said, "I brought you the greatest gift you'll ever get." And I went, wow. He said, "You're going to see a lot of me because this is my favorite department and you need to know this." And I opened the box and it was a nameplate, but it didn't say my name. It said, "The customer is your business and not an interruption." That was probably the best advice I got after Daddy telling me I could do anything. Move forward, I get a big job in New York, and I'm getting promoted, and I'm getting sent into an area I don't want to be in. I was the queen of accessories, and they moved me into sportswear with all the garmentos. That all I heard of was a lot of drugs, Porsche sunglasses, and hitting on you. So I was pretty terrified about all of it. And my boss, who was so brilliant and was a lawyer, he said, "I'm going to tell you how to be successful." Of course, they're all telling me that. In fact, I think he told me also he was going to give me the greatest advice I ever got. I heard that from all three of these men. But this was really good. And he said, "I want you to do one thing for me." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I want you to listen." And I go, "Yeah, right. Okay." And he says, "No. I mean, pay attention and listen. I don't want you to sit there and think about what you're going to say when they shut up. If you pay attention, they will tell you everything. And at that point, they'll tell you how to sell them. They'll tell you what they want. They will tell you when they want it. They'll tell you everything." So that was number 2. Number 3 was equally as strong as the first 3. And that was from a man who was the president of a company when I went on to the dark side, which is, for those of you who don't know about the fashion business, it's the wholesale side. The manufacturers are the garmentos. They are not the, queens of the hop, which is the retailers. So I go to the dark side and I'm running a company with someone else, and it's a big sweater company, and we've got to bring it back from the dead. And he says to me that I'm going to give you the best advice you ever got. And his advice was, you got to learn the numbers. The smartest thing that ever happened with this company is that they bonused us on profitability. So, hey, it was my business from the day I started. And he said, you have to learn how to run the company. You've got to learn the P&L. You have to understand the numbers. So there you have it. I really had more than one answer.
Oh, that's good. Those were wonderful. Thank
But
you.
there you go.
Per usual. Per usual, I have to shorten my response because of Leisa. All good. So there are actually 3 people also. Well, so the first group of people, that's my family. And my family, like Lisa's father, told me I could do anything. And I'm an only child in this huge family, men and women who love me dearly and I love them back. And they kind of told me I could do anything. So I go into the world with that being my North Star. And then I get to high school and my English teacher, Ms. Ginger Deffenbaugh, says to us, but to me probably in particular, the world does not revolve around you. So get over yourself. And she told us that every single day of 9th grade English. So much so that I got upset and I went to the head of the school. I went to an engineering prep school. So I go to the head of the school, Ms. Vicky Cave, who I didn't know was her smoking buddy, and tell on Mrs. Deffenbaugh. And Ms. Cave says, Shavonnah, life is pay me now or pay me later. There are no shortcuts. So I slink back to class, and those are my 2 big lessons. And then I go get my first job, and I'm a high school student. I'm working at the mall at Kids Foot Locker. And my boss was a man named Brian Leamer. And Brian was excellent, like excellent. Still today, one of the best bosses I've ever worked for. There was no slouching. There was no wrinkled uniforms. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And that paid off for him because he went on to get promoted all the way up to and through the corporate office of the entire company that owned not only Kids Foot Locker, but all of the Foot Locker family. So those are my 3.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's a great way to get to know each of them. And I think we all may have similar stories and similar advice that was given to us. So our first question will be for Anita. And the question is, how do you define your core values and how do they show up at work?
I'm going to try this. Can y'all hear me? This one works? Okay. Okay.
Support coming in.
Okay, but you can start.
Yeah, all right. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. Yeah, okay. So I think it's a simple question, but it's also a tough one. And Maria, I know we spoke about a couple weeks back, right? And since then, I've been thinking about the question quite a bit. I think like some of the other speakers today, it's not that maybe at my generation, I'm in my mid-40s now, I didn't set out knowing exactly what was most important to me and drive to take those opportunities. Oftentimes early in my career, I had to take what I got, right? And use that as a way to prove myself and demonstrate my skills and learn along the way. But what I've realized over the past few years, particularly, is the 3 core values that really resonate with me are compassion, creativity, and integrity. And I apply them both in my personal and my professional life. Compassion, I really enjoy connecting with people around the world, different experiences, and see what makes them tick. Why are they thinking a certain way that they are, or what are they looking for? And works very well with my clients as well. Understanding the companies that I'm working with, what are their objectives, the people that I'm working with on my projects, what are they looking for personally? Are they looking to grow? Are they looking to learn something new? Are they looking to demonstrate specific skills? So that really matters a lot is understanding the why we're doing something before we're getting into whatever it is we're going to get into. The second one would be creativity. And I kind of put creativity and innovation together. Personally, I always enjoy having something creative in my life, whether it's art or I play the piano or cooking or traveling. You know, all of that is, I feel like supplementing that with my work life is very important. And at work, you know, innovation and finding new ways to do things and solve problems really, really makes me tick, right? So as an example, I'm working with a couple of companies now that are thinking about their sustainability journey, particularly how they're going to meet their sustainability goals, and also looking at things like carbon capture and sequestration. And these are new areas in the market. We don't have very well-defined solutions. So it's been really exciting to ideate with these companies to think about, well, how are we going to track carbon? How are we going to capture the CO2? How can we monetize it? How can we reduce taxes and whatnot? And how do we build systems that are going to help support these initiatives and this new line of business? And then 3 would be integrity. So as we're executing, whether it's, again, personally or professionally, making sure that, you know, I'm conducting myself in a way that, you know, maintaining my integrity, maintaining, the right way of doing things, taking care of my teams, and really executing with excellence. So those are, kind of the values that are important to me. And when I think about, the company I work with, Ernst & Young, their motto is building a better working world. And I feel like that resonates well in terms of, how do we help other companies work better? How do we help the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis? And that ties into kind of, again, the projects that I try to select when I'm working with clients. So, I think it's an ever-evolving process. It's not, at least for me, it's not something that I knew right away. It's something that I continually tweak, but trying to keep my values, kind of in focus and trying to figure out how my values are going to jive with what the company or my team or my clients are looking for, and where there's a fit and where there isn't potentially. So it's an interesting journey.
So ladies, I know it might not feel natural. Look, I switched on you. Did you find me? Like, where's Waldo? You got to put the mic really close.
Oh.
It's really hard to hear in the back if the mic's not close to your.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Oh, man.
Okay. All right. We got it, though. We got all the core values you talked about.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Compassion, you had creativity and integrity. And I also like that she touched on the why that we heard Elise talk about earlier today.
Yeah.
So very important. Do we have any other panelists that wants to add to her question some personal insight?
Well, core values, so I'll take the mic. Excuse me. So my core values, I did the exercise that you mentioned, Sarah, and mine are truth and growth. And so if you know me, then you're like, yep, because all things point to that, right? Tell me the truth, tell myself the truth, and from that truth, I can optimize and improve, and that's how you grow. So I think it's so important, and I do encourage everyone to go and do that exercise or any exercise that helps you more clearly understand what your core values are. And there really should only be a few, right? I mean, there's not going to be 50. There are going to be a couple, and focus on that and make that the thing you center everything else you do, work and otherwise, around.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. Any other insights before we move on to the next question? Okay. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Our next question is for Shavonnah. So you can keep the mic.
Thank you.
What is the best advice for people seeking to advocate for themselves while showcasing their personal leadership?
So I took notes because I thought this was such an important question, and I'm so happy that a lot of our speakers so far have touched on a few things. So I'll reinforce and double click on some of the things they said. So first of all, whenever you think about advocating for yourself, I think it's this balance. So self-awareness. I talk a lot about self-awareness and self-leadership because I personally think that's bedrock. If you don't know who you are, like you personally at the core, everything else will be on shaky ground. So first of all, understand that this is a balance. And then I have 8 particular points that I want to cover. Don't worry, they're bullet points, so everyone relax. So as I've already mentioned, make self-knowledge and self-awareness paramount. So self-leadership, 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 self-leadership. Know your value and your values to the point that I just made. And if you don't, operating from your core values, believe in yourself, it's very difficult for you to believe other people when they say they believe in you, right? So we're often surrounded by these people who encourage us, but if you don't believe in you, those encouragements don't take root. So you have to know your value and your values. Hone your communication skills. And for women, I think this is something that is very interesting and sometimes hard because we're struggling to be firm, but not be aggressive, because that's the thing, right? So if you're too bold in what you want, then that could be maybe sometimes, I see some head shaking, seen as aggressive. And I get it, and this is the world we live in, so we have to navigate it to the best of our ability. And so I think practicing being firm, but also not being aggressive is an art. I think it is. I think you do it really well. It's graciousness, really, when you think about it. And I think that's something that's really important. And be relentless in building relationships. Ryder mentioned the Mark Network. Sarah mentioned crowdsourcing, all of the advice that she gave us. Build those relationships both in your organizations, in your industry, and in your community. Because I think as you ascend, I don't think this, I know this, as you ascend in your career, opportunities don't just come from your company. They come from people you know, they come from people that know people you know. So building those networks, not just at work, but in the industry and in the community, paramount. Seek feedback. I love feedback, but obviously, right, because my core values are growth and truth. People have to tell you the truth. We talked yesterday, Leisa and I, about fashion friends, but I think you need fashion friends, work friends, just you friends, people who will give you honest feedback. And then you have to take that feedback not as criticism, even if it's critical, right? That it's not a personal attack. It's someone telling you something that you can then improve upon. So ask for feedback. When you give a presentation, people will say, oh, you did great. Thank you. And is there anything that I could have done differently that would have made it more impactful? Things like that. So seek feedback. Lead by example. That's self-leadership again. Stay informed and be resilient. So Leisa, I think you mentioned it's not that life gets easier, but you learn how to handle hard better or something like that. That's the gist of it. I thought that was such a good point and something that I wrote down and I'm taking away. Life can get tricky. Things happen and no one cares. As Ms. Effenbach said, the world doesn't revolve around you. Everyone is experiencing it as well. So what are you going to do to use that situation as a learning opportunity so you can optimize and get better?
Wonderful. I love what you said about relationships and how important it is to have them within the organization that you work with, but also networks like this and other networks in your industry, because that's a great way to help others advocate for you and also you advocate for yourself. So thanks for sharing.
Of course.
Do we have, I think, Heather, you want to share something? Yes, you do turn it on.
Is this thing on?
You all hear me? Yeah. So I have 2 tips, and one was given to me years ago. I have a folder. It's in my email box, and it's called Kudos. And anytime I get an email from a client, a customer, someone else in our organization, whether they're someone who works for me, a peer, someone who's above me, I keep it. Because if you're going to go advocate for yourself, you have to have some ammunition. And the ammunition may be, I blew my numbers out of the water by 20%. It might be that, I did these extra 10 tasks that weren't asked of me. But then I also include, in my self-review, I will include bullet points of quotes. And you don't remember them, like the customers love me. Well, what does that mean? Well, here's 10 emails from customers over the past year where they took the time to say, thank you for going above and beyond. I negotiate with terrorists for a living. I do ransomware response. So a lot of times my clients, after we've finished the ransomware, and if a ransom's been paid and their systems are back up and running, they never ever, they say to me, thank you so much. I never want to see you again. And so for them to then say, to send something nice, but I think that's a tip to advocate for yourself. And then also, I have a work wife, and everything that we say to each other is in the vault.
And we bounce things off of each other. It has to be someone you really trust. And so if I'm super upset about something, I'll bounce it off of her and she'll go, "You're overreacting, like sleep on that. Please do not call anybody," and vice versa. Or, "Oh no, that's terrible. Like, yeah, you may want to write that down." But you have to have someone who does either the same job as you or is in the same department, so they know the politics and the mechanics and stuff. And she's my truth teller, and she's in a completely different city, but I really do need her as well. And she advocates for me, and I advocate for her too.
That's really good. You touched on trust, and so did Shavonnah. I think that's very important, is having those trusted people in your network. And also, I love the kudos folder, so I think we should all have that. Thank you. That's really, really good. So our next question is for Leisa. What are the key steps in advocating for yourself or others, and especially in this hybrid environment?
I just have to smile for a minute before I start. You have to always remember, no matter what you're doing, that you're a brand and you are your brand. And whether you're representing your company, yourself, your community, your church, whatever it is, you have to put your best foot forward. So I have a few laws around that. Those of you who know me know that I feel very strongly that presentation is 9/10 of the law. The other 10th doesn't really matter. If they're not going to look at you, in my case, they weren't buying from me. In your case, they may not listen to you about ransomware. In your case, it doesn't matter because you always look good. But anyway, it's just so important. And that is sort of what we were talking about yesterday, is find yourself a friend who looks you over and says, "This is all together." I'm not saying you have to buy designer clothing, go to the most expensive hairdresser, any of that, but you have to look like somebody that whoever you are meeting with or wanting to impress or wanting to get a raise from or move up the corporate ladder is impressed with. So that's just a huge thing to me. Another thing I think that's really important in building your personal brand, I'm going to go back to listening. Listening is so important. And the one thing people will really remember always about you is that you listened. Because you listened, you heard their story, and then if you had something really integral to tell them, you told them, which goes back to your truth and growth idea. I think being honest is very important. Being tactless is terrible. Do not do that. If you know you're going to really lay somebody out for the rest of the day, don't do it. But if there's a way to say, "You really could have done that better," or, "Gosh, this happened to me 3 years ago. I know you're upset, but here's how I came out of it." I mean, that just makes a huge difference. My next recommendation for everyone building their brand or advocating for themselves is learn to network. And I don't mean network collecting business cards, which is really how I started. For those of you who don't know, I am a native Houstonian, 5th generation, left for 25 years in New York City in the fashion business and came home a little broken, single mom of a 13-year-old, and had to put food on the table, is what I call it, earn a living, etc. And my life that I was living, I couldn't do in Houston. I was an executive recruiter in the fashion industry. There was no fashion in Houston, and I had a 13-year-old. Well, I didn't say that. I do not mean that.
Industry, fashion industry.
Fashion industry. It was fashion, fashion, retail, and consumer products.
Our show is still going out on the public news.
Look, watch the outtakes from yesterday. They're hilarious. No, anyway, fashion, and there was not a fashion industry, consumer retail located in Houston. And I was a single mom of a 13-year-old and really couldn't travel. So basically, I accidentally started a company in 2003, and I ended up networking. Well, I mean, I was going to 13 events a day. I mean, I was bottom feeding, I was working the room. I met 1,600 people in 11 months. I mean, I just was insane. And I was so lucky to have people come along and grab me by the back of the neck and say, "Wait a minute, we're going to take you down to 6 events a day." And we're going to put you in the right place, and you're going to meet people. Because those business cards, if you don't know them, don't mean a thing. In fact, when you go to those luncheons and they pass the business cards around, mine aren't in the cards. I'm not giving you my card if I don't know who you are, and I'm not generally taking yours unless I'm going to put it in my Outlook and remember you. So when you meet someone, connect. It isn't really hard. It's not hard to walk up to someone standing alone or walk up to two people and just introduce yourself. I like pretend. I have this outer body person called Leisa Holland Nelson, and she can do anything. I, on the other hand, am terrified of being in this room or any other. But we put her on and trot her out, and we joke about her a lot. But damn it, she's going to meet you today, and she's going to remember you, and she's hopefully going to say something that you'll remember her by.
Thank you, Leisa.
Last but not least, if there is more.
That's good. I love it.
So my purpose in life is to help you get what you want. I don't know how I got there. It's been that way my whole life. My mother said I tap danced out of the womb arranging flowers to give other people to make them happy. It just makes me happy. So I just think that my core value more than any other, obviously integrity and love and joy and yada, 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 is really generosity. And I think if you can keep that inside of you, you're not going to ever have a problem meeting people, working your way up. You've listened, you've connected, you look fabulous. Fabulous is real important. So people will remember the favors that you did for them.
Thank you, Leisa. I love that. I love what you said about generosity. I think it's very important. Listening, I think, is key, because a lot of times we're listening to respond, and really listening to process and understand is really important for all of us in our working relationships and inside and outside of work. Does anyone else want to add to what Leisa talked about? What about in the hybrid environment? Like, you think about...
Oh, let me say something
networking
about that.
and
That was the other part of my
work schedule is a
question.
little different.
I want to just answer that for a second. In the hybrid environment, a couple of things. First of all, how you look online when you're working over Zoom really does matter. So go ahead and don't put just your name up if you're in a meeting. At least put your picture there. You know, I mean, we insist that our guys' pictures are up in meetings, but honestly, if the client's face is there, our face better be there. You know, it's really rude to not have your face there. But you need to look nice too. So whoever is meeting with you online deserves the same respect of the person that would be meeting with you in person. And I'm going to say something that may not be very popular. And this is about the hybrid workspace. When I was growing up in business, if the business office or the home office or whatever you want to call it was in New York City and you were in Texas, you weren't going to be the CEO. And that was just a fact. You had to get to the home office. So in the hybrid workspace, you have to figure out how to be seen wherever leadership is, or you're not going to be seen. Because you on a Zoom, no matter how brilliant you are, you're not tangible. And I think that the person next to the person making the decision is either influencing the decision or getting the decision. So that's my point there.
Great insight. Thank you, Leisa. We have another question, and this is for Heather. What are you currently working on in your industry that will shape it in the future?
Artificial intelligence. So I sit on the Texas Bar Task Force for AI, and we're struggling and working with, are we going to do rules? Are we going to do recommendations for attorneys, for law schools, for judges? For example, like if you're going to use ChatGPT to file a brief, do you have to disclose that you're using ChatGPT? The hallucinations are hysterical in some of the legal filings that use ChatGPT. I think we all know about the New York case. So it's been around for a long time. I think and everybody in here who's in tech knows that, AI has been around for over 50 years, but it is exponentially on a rocket ship. And it can do a lot of good, but like most technology, most people don't want to take the safeguards they need to take. They just love the convenience of it. And so I sit in rooms with boards and CEOs and have to tell them, please don't put your proprietary information into a prompt. That is not, yes, it's fun that it's going to write your annual report for you, but now everybody knows all of this stuff that may not have been public. And then on the cybersecurity, I like I said, I do a lot of incident response. The threat actors are using it to write really good phishing emails. They're using it to write malware. And so it is this, double-edged sword of trying to keep up with the threat actors, which we never can do. And giving advice and giving guidance on the advisory side of, be very careful with what you're doing, but it can improve processes. We see that it can speed up work, and there's a lot of good in it, but my privacy and data security background always has this, kind of this red flag of slow down, educate your workforce. And there are some companies who are blocking it on their websites. There are some companies and a lot of law firms that are saying, if you're going to use any sort of AI, it needs to be through a legal website like a LexisNexis or a Westlaw that has already, they've got some really good controls in there so that if you do enter sensitive or private information, that it's not just out on the web for everybody to find. So I think, learning as much as you can about AI and in your industry is going to set you apart, because I can say from a cybersecurity standpoint, we can't hire people fast enough out of college who have computer science degrees with a specialty in cybersecurity, and especially women. If you're a woman who knows cybersecurity and AI, you can pretty much write your own ticket right now. Because it's still a man's world. But I'm very happy to say, like, a lot of our younger consultants that we've hired, in the past 5 years are majority women, which is fantastic. They do bring, it's a very different mindset to cybersecurity and incident response. And this is I'm a little biased, but they're so much better in front of clients. They just are. There's just, and I love having the women on my team because I know I can put them in front of a client to tell them the worst news that company has ever heard, and it's not just going to be technical jargon. There's going to be a little bit of empathy and stuff. So that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to drive more women into STEM. Not that it's, that we're all just full of empathy. We're horrible people too, but but we do need more women who know AI and cybersecurity. So I would say if you're at all interested in it, there is so much free information. Microsoft has some free classes on AI and machine learning, and CISA, CISA.gov has some fantastic information that's all free that you can do some online learning, and it's a good thing to be in. Oh, CISA. Do you all know? You can raise your hand if you don't know what CISA is. Oh, so it is our government agency for information security. So it's basically like the cybersecurity czar of the United States. So CISA, CISA.gov. A lot of really good free information on there.
So I wanted to follow up on what Heather said, and this goes back to the point that I think several of us made about network. So just now, Heather told us two things. Number one, she's in a position to hire women who could write their own check, is what you said, quote, write your own check if you're willing to sharpen the skills maybe you already have or go and develop new skills around cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. So you're at work, maybe some of you, but most of us aren't. So this is an example of the network being an entree to a new opportunity. The other thing I think is super important, and this made me think about what you said, Leisa, about personal brand. I am the queen of follow-up. Like, I'm masterful at it. And you'd be surprised how many people don't follow up. So if you follow up, it's like a superpower. Like, just being what she just said, and if you are interested and you follow up, she'll probably hire you. I'm thinking, just because, right? Because you'd be surprised how few people follow up. So I just wanted to double click on that because I thought it was so important. I'm thinking, do I need to go back to school for cyber? You said write my own check.
I just want to add one more thing. always respond. I left that out. No matter what, always, always, always respond. I don't care if you email me back, noted. Just let me know you got the email. If I left you a voicemail, call me back. If I texted you, text me back. If I emailed you, if I write you a letter, you can email me back. I'm not writing you a letter, I promise. But just respond. I have to say that has been one of the biggest things that's helped me through my whole career is I respond. And one last trick about that, on Friday, go through your dead email box and find all the ones you didn't even see, much less didn't respond to.
So I will add to that, the number of clients who have said to me, thank you for answering your phone. Like, what? And typically because they're calling on a Friday night or a holiday weekend because that's when cyber attacks occur. And because of my business, I have to answer my phone or I have someone who's doing it for me if someone else is on call. But thank you for answering your phone. And also thank you for responding. And my team members, if they're doing incident response, there's a lot of proactive cybersecurity that is not as emergent. But if you're on incident response in cybersecurity, you have to respond to a client within an hour. I mean, their company is on fire and you're the fireman. And so depending on your industry, yeah, responsiveness and answer your phone. I mean, like.
Good. Basic, but very important. Anything else, Anita, you'd like to add for this topic? Good. So how much time do we have left? I think we're in wrap up. Okay. So any key takeaways? So if you look at our topic was around career and branding. We gave a lot of great advice around your why, listening, relationships, follow-up, anything else that you think of around the world of technology. It's evolving and it's changing. How we advocate for ourselves is also changing. Any key takeaways as we wrap up our panel?
So I'm a learner. I love to learn. I've always been curious. And I think continue to learn new things, even if it's just to go take a few free courses and you're not going to switch careers, but continue to build your knowledge base around all the things. That makes you a much more enjoyable dinner guest or lunch guest because you at least have your finger on the pulse, generally speaking. So continue to learn, even if it's not for the job that you do primarily every day.
So I would add, if you're ever asked to speak, whether it's at a roundtable, at an industry event or something, do it. I have gotten jobs from speaking. I have gotten business from speaking. I do it a lot. I do a lot of continuing legal education. Part of my job is to do thought leadership, but it goes back to the networking, and we're all terrified of public speaking. But you get used to it. It is a muscle that you will learn to do. And I think, especially in the tech space, we do need more women at the table speaking their expertise and their experience.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. So I mean, I think there was so much great advice in this panel. So Maria, thank you so much for organizing and getting us to speak some of the truth that we've learned along the way. And really, when it comes to advocating for ourselves and networking, I think what we're hearing is find what's organic for you, find what's natural for you, but make those little steps so that you're sharing with others what you're doing, you're building your network a little by little. I tell my teams, when we're in an office, like, let's make sure that we're having lunch with someone new or having a coffee or breakfast or happy hour. Let's have it a little bit of an engagement where it's not just meeting. I need this. Where's that? But getting to know somebody and building a little bit of a relationship, because the work comes and goes. But I've been here working in Houston for almost 25 years, and I'm still in touch with people that I've worked with at every project. And it makes it all more meaningful. And that's how, organically, you don't have to, have this big speech about yourself. And I want you to know what I've done, but it's just, it's organic. So, yeah.
I'm taking you home. One last thing, everybody. Leave white space in your calendar. Take care of yourself. Nobody else can take care of you. Nobody else will take care of you. And the big one, nobody says thank you when you didn't.
I love that. Well, let's give a big applause to our panel. I really enjoyed getting to know each of them and appreciate all the insights that they shared with you.
Moving my stuff, which I didn't use.